Welcome, everybody. Happy Sabbath, and if I may extend a Happy New Year to all of you on this first Sabbath of the 2023 season. We've all made it. So I'd like to also welcome our online presence. Welcome to what is with the new year. We have a new quarterly, which means we have a brand new lesson with a brand new theme, and I get to set the tone. Uh-oh, better watch out. But yes, I'd like to welcome our online presence. We don't necessarily have a mic today. Mike on the mic has not arrived yet. So what I will do, if we have any interactions with the crowd, I will repeat the question for the online presence. So we'll have a little bit of a delay between the question and answer until we get somebody to truck the mic around for us. My name is Tom Bloom. My partner, Pastor Rom, will be here. He has duties that he needs to attend to at the start of this lesson, so he'll slip in probably later on during the course of the lesson. But before we open God's Word and dive into our lesson, let's pray and ask for the Holy Spirit to be here, shall we? Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Father, we thank you for the New England weather that is surrounding us, the cold and the snow. Father, we live in New England and we complain about it, but I think we also look forward to it on occasion. Be with us now as we open your word and have the Holy Spirit descend on us so that we may be led to understand the things that you want us to know today during the study of your word. We thank you for your love. We thank you for your guidance. In thy name, amen. Well, the name of our lesson today is Part of God's Family, and is our idiom, or the process that Daniel and I put together. I'd like to start out with the memory text before we dive into the body of the lesson. Okay? So our memory text comes from 1 John 3, verse 1. And it says, if you have your either your hardcover quarterly or your electronic quarterly, please feel free to turn right to it. And the memory text says, behold what manner of love the Father has bestowed on us, that we should be called the children of God. Now, in my study for this week's lesson, I believe the lesson is broken up into at least 3 separate parts from my perspective. All right. Part 1 is the establishment in the Sunday and Monday's lesson of God regaining and possessing the ownership of everything that we have around us. I mean, not only do we belong to him, but all of our Bible verses in preparation for the study of today's lesson go on to tell us not only do we belong to him, but everything around us belongs to him as well. Okay, so the idea of stewardship is an interesting one, because for years and years and years, stewardship was always presented to us as what? Most of the time. Yes, absolutely. Tithe and offerings, make sure that we get it in, right? And as a reminder to us that we need to support our local congregation and our local churches and the outreaches that we choose to support, right? Well, stewardship has turned into not just that. It's that, but it is also in the 21st century and in the latter part of the 20th century turned into a bit more. Okay, I want to develop that conversation a little bit more. The people that I'm speaking to online and here in the church pews, I mean, we are well versed in the need to continue the faithfulness with our tithes and offerings. Okay, this isn't something necessarily that I need to go into the deep Bible verses about how this is necessary, because we're all kind of sitting here. We're a part of that heritage, and we're interested in it. What I want to push the conversation to, and hopefully during this quarter as well, is what stewardship has kind of morphed into from the 20th into the 21st century. I mean, being the historian that I am, I can go into the historical background of what stewardship started out to be, okay? And that was, we go biblical. And what was initial stewardship all about? What were the early Christians told to do by Jesus and by the early apostles. When the first church came together, what were we told? What did stewardship look like? We were told to take care of the widows and the right? And the poor. Okay, that's what stewardship was mostly about in the early Christian church. Was making sure that there was enough for everyone. Okay? And that no one went totally hungry. I mean, but now we've kind of moved into where you're not necessarily wondering where your next meal is coming from, where you're going to sleep at night, right? So stewardship has turned into what it turned into in the 20s, 30s, and 40s and 50s, which was the tithes and offerings idea, making sure that God's house was taken care of, right? In the 20th and 21st century, stewardship has moved into broadening our view, okay? We still take care of the poor and the infirmed, right? But our view has broadened to not just humanity, but also taking care of what? The world that we live on, right? Exactly. This wider question of activism, environmental activism, and that has come into our church, and it's a question that I think that bears some conversation about, because we are told to be stewards of God's affairs. I mean, in lesson 1, so if we turn to lesson 1, right, he goes on Sabbath afternoon's lesson, he says, as Christians, an amazing feature about our relationship with God is that he trusts us to manage his affairs. Now, what affairs are we talking about here? God's affairs. What are God's affairs on earth? I mean, who we interact with, his church, the care of the sick and the indigent, right? Does God have any more affairs other than those basic ones? What about the animals? What about our environment? What about, what we do as a race, how we clean up after ourselves, inside the environment? Is this something that's important for us to start thinking about going forward into the 21st century? I mean, when we heard this idea that global warming was turning into a thing, and it becomes more and more into our faces now, right? Is it something that we need to start thinking a little bit more about? I mean, what are God's affairs here on this earth? Is it simply tithes and offerings? And making sure that our church buildings are warm and up and running and all the rest of that sort of stuff?
I think people who believe that Christ is coming next week are not as concerned as those who think it'll be centuries away.
Ah, yes. Agreed. Okay, the response is that she said that those that believe that Christ is coming next week, and that has been a very fervent belief, right? We as Seventh-day Adventists, we've started out with this belief. The early Christians started out with this belief. Peter and the disciples started out with this belief, okay? And so it's kind of continued on into the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So we haven't necessarily gotten involved with what, has been done to the earth and all that sort of stuff, because we believe, well, hey, Christ is going to come and make it right here pretty quick. So, these are sins that Christ will have to deal with, I'd like to welcome in my partner, Pastor Rom, to our conversation.
All right. I just had a quick impromptu meeting that I had to have about communion today.
Excellent.
So I'm just getting wired up here. But anyway, I didn't mean to sound like you got things going here. This is awesome.
Yeah. All right. So we're dealing right now. What we're dealing with is the first section of Sabbath afternoon is in our relationship. He trusts us to manage his affairs here on this earth.
Yeah.
And I'm quizzing the congregation here a little bit to what exactly are God's affairs.
So this is a pop quiz.
Yes.
Oh,
well, I'm
no.
a teacher, so
I
of
didn't
course.
know that was allowed.
Right. But what is we're talking about what God's affairs on earth are. And of course, the early Christians, it was the poor, the childless, and the orphans, okay. But now, as we're not necessarily worrying about where our next meal comes from, and morphing into the 20th century, through the 20s and the 60s and 70s, it was, our stewardship was making sure that the tithes and the offerings came into the storehouse for the continuance of our outreach programs and the physical structures that we worshiped in. But now what we've been getting is been getting this push into our congregations of not only are we to worry about this, but now we're starting to worry about like environmental activism and that kind of stuff. And is environmental, and I don't mean extreme environmental activism. Let me not get us off on the wrong foot here, but a belief that we need to take care of the environment as well has been starting to push its way into our churches as well. And how do we, as SDAs, deal with it? So I brought you current, and Mrs. Rittenhouse said, and I quote, Merriman, sorry, my bad, Merriman. Ms. Merriman said that, those of us that have been Seventh-day Adventists and grew up in a certain tradition said, Jesus Christ is coming soon. Right. So these were issues that we didn't necessarily have to worry about so much.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm saying, do we need to start revisiting those questions as we look at, a new year, a new lesson, and a new ideas as it comes to stewardship?
I think that's a good question. One of the first commandments God gives us is to take care of this earth.
Right.
And we can't sidestep it. It was yesterday I was taking out my garbage, and I looked at that garbage bag, and I'm like, I can't believe what we produced in 1 week. It's like, and this is going to go into a truck that will go to a dump or maybe some sort of transfer station. Right. Bulldoze over. We've seen those pictures, and it's not really pretty. And it's like, is there a better way?
Is there a better way?
And some of it will degrade, but some of it will be around for a long time. Even the plastic bag that the garbage is in, it's like, how long will that be around? So it's a question I think that we really should have asked 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. Once you figure the formation of plastic is probably such a defining moment of ecological history.
Separation between, right.
Yeah, that you can actually make something that is so usable and will last forever. Oh man, what a great blessing, and plastic has been a blessing. I mean, medically speaking.
Oh yes.
You look at all of the IV tubes, and it's just amazing. But what do you do with it afterwards? But at any rate, we digress, but it's...
So God has given us control of these resources, right? In His mercy, like I said in our Sabbath afternoon and our Sunday, God, with our Bible text, God very well establishes His ownership of the earth and its resources, okay? But in His loving kindness, He allows us to utilize those resources for the furtherance of just taking care of ourselves? Not necessarily.
No.
All right. We need to utilize God's resources for there's a great story in our Sabbath school lesson, right? David wants to build the temple. And he goes, yes, this is an amazing idea. And he gets all hot and bothered about this idea. And he wants to do it. And he says to the prophet Nathan, he goes, I'm going to build a temple. Mm-hmm. All right. And Nathan goes, great idea. All right. And then instead of saying, let's go sleep on it, they go sleep on it. And the Lord says, wait. Hold on a second here.
You're not the guy.
You're not the guy.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
But what does he allow David to do?
To start collecting the materials.
Giant piles of stuff.
But I think there's something, when was the last time we were really excited to do something, Tom?
Well, yes, there's
and
that.
I think that's one thing that we really need to say, wait a second here. David had this organic joy in his life. He said, I must build this temple.
Right.
I got to get it done. And I think that's part of the beauty of that story is that he says, I got to get this thing done. And I think that's where we need to step back and say, well, look at all the blessings we have.
Absolutely.
You know, what really puts us in a right frame of mind, in a generous frame of mind, in a joyful frame of mind, where we're like, wow, this is incredible. So,
We are in one of the most bountiful times, at least from individuals, in human history, right?
Yeah, we are.
We have so many personal resources. We have so many resources that we can get a hold of if we really put our minds to it, right? So David was a king. So of course he was able to start gathering from hither and yon, right? He'd send out his decrees and people would start. But David also wanted the people to give how? Did he do it by fiat, by demand, by coming in and saying, I'm the king, I'm taking that pile of gold there? How would he have wanted the people to start to give? Was it a duty? Was it viewed as a duty to build God's temple? I would go ahead. No, you're shaking your head. Let's have some conversation here. How would you think that David would have tried to invest his enthusiasm for this project into the people that he was going to? And he would want them to get fired up about it and do what? And give as their hearts directed them to give. Okay? And in the case of the temple, how did that work out?
Short-term good.
Short-term good, right. Short-term good, you know, short-term well.
Yep.
But that also reads into it as well, right? We've been waiting for Christ to come for so long that our feelings may begin to flag, right? Our commitment to the work may begin to flag a little bit, just as it did, right?
Yep.
So how do we view stewardship in that regard? Is there a stewardship need for the message, for the excitement, for the fire that we felt as early Christians ourselves? I remember when I was newly baptized, like right over there.
No kidding.
Right over there. Okay, I won't tell the year. Okay, newly baptized, came up out of the water. I was like, if steam could have risen from the water, it would have, because I was on fire.
Awesome.
All right? And that fire carried me for many, many years. Right? But in the normal course of human ways, fires tamp down, fires wane, right? But is it also our job to be stewardships of the emotion, the fire that David felt for the work of the Lord? Is that not also something that we should do? We deal in money, we deal in physicality so much. I mean, but in this time of the 21st century when we're talking about mental health, right? That's another thing. Our excitement, our push, our emotions toward the furtherance of God's work.
Yep.
Is that something we need to be interested in maintaining? I know as New Englanders, if I smile once a day, you're getting a lot out of me, right? But go ahead.
So, but it's interesting. I got to ask a question. What really does get us excited?
Yeah.
What gets us excited? If you got home and or let's say next week you get a check in the mail, a legitimate check for $100,000.
Yep.
That might, say, hey, this is pretty. You might get excited. I would think you would, wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, I've been watching the Powerball go up. And
it's crazy. No,
I'm not talking about that. But you watch those numbers, right? And who among us has not had a conversation, right?
About $1 billion.
What would you do if?
Yeah.
We've all had that conversation. Come on, really?
Yep.
what'd you do if all of a sudden a truckload of money fell on
and
you?
we are in a church,
Yes,
so
yes.
I do know we all say I would give X number to the HVAC
course.
project, and
Of course.
oh yeah. So after that, but I think, and I'm saying that because the other thing that gets us excited is, births.
Yep.
Children being born.
Yes.
That puts a smile on everybody's faces. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren in some cases. So that gets us excited.
Yep.
What else gets us excited? Snow or spring? Some would probably say spring, some would say snow. But it's interesting, why are these things that get us excited? Because they speak to us. They change our lives.
Right. Yep.
Spring comes, and I know the wetchies are out. They're probably counting down the days till springtime. And you got your garden all set, and
flowers are ready. That's
Flowers
right.
are just, they're there under the ground, ready to pop out, and you know dozens and dozens of names of these flowers. And so when spring comes, and that's what I think we need to say, aren't we in a way always in a state of spring with our relationship with God? We're
Right.
always new creation. You are therefore a new creature. You're a new creation in Christ Jesus.
Amen.
And we lose focus of this, and so often our minds, our attention goes to the things that pull us down.
That's right.
And get us discouraged, and the mundane, the boring, the troubles, and we get pulled down. And I think that's one key reason why, coming back to us here, why we worship.
That's right.
Is we need each other. We need each other to say, isn't the Lord good? And we may have to say that during a snowstorm where half the power is out.
That's right.
But the Lord is still good. He's still on his throne.
That's right.
So, but that's, I don't know, anything else here get us excited?
Weddings get me excited.
Awesome.
They
Baptisms
do.
get me excited.
Baptism, absolutely, right?
So,
I mean, when I'm sitting down as a teacher in front of a classroom, and I've been teaching, and one of the main reasons why I'm a teacher, okay, and Dr. Wetchy and those of you that have taught in front of classrooms, back me up on this. You may grind that teaching for so long, but when the eyes light up on a student who just gets it eventually, the eyes open, they're like, you can tell. If the light bulb could go above the head, like we had the physical manifestation of understanding, that would be one of those things. And I'm sure when Pastor Rom is teaching truth, and you're looking into the crowd and they're understanding it, and the eyes light up, and you can tell they are understanding what it is that I'm trying to say.
The other thing is haystacks. All right, haystacks today, all right? Don't leave.
That's right.
But haystacks. But food, in all seriousness, haystacks food.
Yeah.
And how does the Lord welcome us with the marriage supper of the Lamb, So these are the things that, get us excited.
Social interaction. Holidays, where we have a lot of social interaction with people.
Yep.
Part of the reason that we come to church every week, not the main reason, but definitely one of the reasons, is to see faces that we haven't been staring at for the entire week.
That's right.
Already.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
We want to come talk to somebody new. We want to swap news stories. We want to bid everybody Happy New Year.
Yep.
And we were made to be social.
Yeah, we were. So I think that's part of what's interesting when you look at stories of David wanting to build a temple.
Yep.
It was something new and exciting. And I think that's a challenge. Whenever we start something, eventually it will be unnew.
Right.
And that's where, when this, many here walked across the street when this was a brand new building. And I guarantee you there was smiles wall to wall.
Oh, yeah.
And never once did they think, in 40 years, we're going to need a new HVAC system.
Yeah, right.
It's going to cost $400,000. They never thought about that.
No.
You're like thinking, look at this. Wow, this is incredible. And you're like celebrating that moment, which is good. You're not supposed to be worrying about, even Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow.
No.
We somehow need to learn to live in a way in the moment.
But what have we taken that to mean? No long-term planning, no disaster planning, we don't, right? As a church, we don't have a tendency to do that, to your point, right? We don't have a tendency to do that. But in the reality, it's still necessary on some level. Okay, as our lesson says, that shouldn't be our absolute focus, right? Our lesson insinuates that the gathering of money doesn't need to be our absolute focus.
Right.
However, that doesn't mean that you absolutely ignore it either. You have to, if your house is falling on your head, you got to deal with it.
It's very interesting because I've known one at least, but other pastors know more, of a little loophole in Social Security. You may have heard about this, but because of the Amish, the IRS code actually allows a clergy to, on his own conviction, actually to opt out of Social Security.
Interesting.
Now, some clergy back in the day, 50s, 60s, actually said, Jesus is coming soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jesus is coming soon. I don't need Social Security.
That's right. That's right.
So against church counsel, and I would even say against really
Common sense
and moral issues, they signed a little document saying, I object to Social Security, so I will not have any withholdings. Well, those guys turned 65.
Oh, that's right.
And they found themselves in a problem. So I think this is germane to this issue is, there is a time and place to plan for the future so, yep.
There has to be. I mean, there really has to be. Because in our daily lives, when you have children, you plan for their future. Who among us who has kids said, nah, I'm not going to start saving for college for my kids?
Yeah.
Who among us has said, Christmas is coming, but you know what? I'll wait till the week beforehand to go buy presents because what's this long-term planning thing? Who does this stuff? It's not necessary.
Yeah.
Clearly, in our own personal lives, we don't do that. We long-term plan. I mean, some of us, God forbid, I've reached a certain age. My wife is already talking about, what are we going to do when we're 65, Tom? I'm like, I'm going to be working, okay? But a lot of people in my age group are now starting to talk about, retirement planning and all the rest of that sort of stuff. And for some of us, that's 20 years down the road still. Mm-hmm. Right? So why does that attitude stop at that front door? Why does long-term planning is it somehow against the commands of God for us to think about these things and to at least put our mind, maybe not 100%, like I don't want to sit on church board and only, grind on physical plant issues, right? But there's a time and a place for those things.
Yeah. So, any thoughts here? I know there's things. People just aren't talking, Tom.
Yeah.
All
Tough
right,
crowd
all
today.
right,
Tough crowd today.
Oh yeah. But so we're talking about part of God's family, right?
That's right. Yep.
So I did have a thought here as I was going over the lesson. And we haven't heard these stories too much lately, but I remember I don't remember who the celebrity was or the athlete was, but it was probably back in the 80s when you would hear these stories about so-and-so athlete, overpaid actor,
right,
and they would be earning millions and millions of dollars while their parents were in destitute.
right, dire need.
Yep. And they, they were going to lose their house, their car, or whatever, and it was like this shift of shame on this wealthy actor or athlete say, how can you let your own, mom or dad or even brother or sister live in that state? And I say this because I want to ask, what is wrong if a wealthy person ignores their destitute parents? What is wrong if a wealthy person ignores their destitute family members? Let's make it a little broader here. Now, I'm not talking about weird dysfunctional situation
right,
where somebody's addicted to drugs and they know that it's all just going to go to the drug deal. I'm not dealing with that. I'm just talking about people who, did the right thing and just things fell apart. What's wrong with that? Or is it wrong? It is wrong. Why is it wrong? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We have somebody on the mic, so
Yep.
go ahead and wait for the
And
mic.
today his name isn't Mike.
No. Yeah.
I think our parents invest on us. They spend money on our education, take care of us. What do they say right now? $225,000 for a kid?
Yep.
Up to 18 years, something
Yeah,
like that?
yeah.
So I think in return, it's a moral thing and a spiritual thing to help our dad and mom. Where I'm coming from, we do that. We support our parents.
Yeah.
They don't have Social Security.
Right.
In Haiti, they don't have that.
You don't have it, no.
So the parents invest in you all that they have, and they save a little bit. So as they're getting older, my mom, she's 80 years old right now.
Wow.
So I have four brothers and 3 sisters. So this is our responsibility right now to take care of mom, because dad has passed 3 years ago. So what mom needs to go to the doctors. We have to make sure mom is eating properly.
Yep.
Mom need nurse assistants. Mom need this and that. That's our mom.
Yep.
She gave us everything that she had to push us out of the water. That's our responsibility. And this is what I said. It's wrong if we don't do that.
Right.
If we have something right now, we don't need to be rich, but we have to do this.
So I'm glad you put it because you brought up a lot of issues there. So you have this idea about what's wrong and right, but you're also saying, I am indebted to my ancestors.
Right.
I owe something to the person who brought me into this world.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think that's what is key with this lesson today. We're part of God's family, and we actually realize, we put our money where our mouth. Isn't that the expression? Put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
That God created this place, and I know that He wants us to be a part of a family, and this is the family that God has led me to and has, directed me to, and so this is where I will be growing and blossoming and being a blessing and receiving and giving.
That's right.
It's sort of a symbiotic relationship. When you look at the tree, it's a symbiotic, relationship with the earth. Gives oxygen, takes nutrients. It's a beautiful picture of really of how we are to be really in our lives. So the problem is in our mindset, Tom, we have shifted from interdependency to independence.
That's right. That's right.
And that has really had implications we don't even quite realize. You brought up the point, here, if your mom lived here, we'd say, okay, she's got Social Security, and okay, so she's set. And that's a blessing. Social Security is a blessing. At the same time, too, it has a sociological effect on us, where it allows us to be, well, she's okay, and I'll just call her twice a year.
Right. And somehow we believe it negates us from our responsibilities toward each other.
And that's where this is why it's important to realize that when we look at this lesson today, I don't know if you open any of these scriptures here, but the possessive pronoun my keeps coming out.
Yeah.
We are God's, our God is ours. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. There's this idea here, not a shepherd, he's my shepherd.
The shepherd.
He's our shepherd. So,
well, I mean, you have so like I was saying, in our first 2 lessons, we have God firmly establishes through the Sabbath school lesson and the scripture lessons.
we got to turn it down because they have their class over there.
Sorry, yeah, I get loud and it happens.
Me too.
In the first 2 lessons, God says that He possesses everything. It's His. Okay, but then in Tuesday's lesson, where he flips it. So he goes from telling us that everything is His, then he flips it to what? To all the gifts He's willing to give. I mean, that's something that we can think about as well, right? He freely and willingly gives of His bounty to all of us simply for the asking, right? Simply for the asking. And I think that's a strong testament to, like, I always look at the example, right? We all try to follow the example. Now, I remember living and watching television shows where the father's sitting in his armchair and he goes, everything in this house is mine and I let you use it, you know? You know, and you always heard well, did you get an allowance, you know, when you were growing up? Yeah, I was allowed to stay in my room. I was allowed to, you know, I was allowed, right? Okay, God doesn't treat us like that, thank God. Right? What does God give us for expectations? And now I'm moving on to Wednesdays a little bit here. Right? What does God expect from us? He has everything that's well established. He's willing to give us anything. But it's not just a one-way street. It's got to be a two-way relationship. And the Bible goes into what our expectations are.
Yep.
Right? What are those expectations?
Yep.
Obedience to what? His laws, his precepts, right? Okay.
Margaret, I want to take what you said there and go one level deeper.
There we go.
I would say, can I add to that word trust? I think that's the real key.
Right.
Do we trust him? And when you look at the story of, you know, everything from Adam and Eve, do we trust him not to eat from that tree? Cain and Abel, do we trust him that we are supposed to give this particular sacrifice? All the way through, it's trust. And do we trust him? And that's Abraham, that's what's so profound about him. He believed, he trusted Yahweh.
That's right. That's right.
And it was credited him as righteousness. He didn't do much obeying then. No offense. He just trusted. He said, this is the one. You know what I'm saying?
But he did do some crazy stuff.
He did.
Up out of a well-established town, and you're going to go over there.
Of course. Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. I would, I shouldn't say I wouldn't, but I guess the way you've done it when you're a pastor, you're going over here, you're going over there.
Right.
But yeah.
So the level of trust that we need to give, I mean, you look at the things that our forefathers did. All of our forefathers, if you go into like the Adventist history of this stuff, none of them intended to exit their own churches, right? They wanted to reform their own churches.
Yeah.
But because they were coming with this information and these Bible truths and all that sort of stuff, their existing churches said, no, out you go. What level of trust would that have taken to follow God's word and step out and create a brand new church, trusting that what God had said in the Bible was the right thing? It's got to be an amazing act of trust, right? Well, yes, right. If you go backwards, right? Yeah. If you go to the early Christianity, it's downright martyrdom.
Hold on here, Margarita. We're getting you on mic.
Going too fast. I was watching on the Hope Channel this morning about Latimer and the various ones who were ostracized for their faith and finally wound up being burned at the stake.
Yeah.
So it isn't just early Christianity.
Right.
And even today, in parts of the world, you are apt to be martyred if you declare yourself a Christian.
Yep.
Yeah, could you imagine? I mean, we live here in America where persecution equals what? Like, my bank isn't open on Sunday, it's only open on Saturday, so that's persecution. I'm being persecuted. Okay? Right? Here in America, persecution isn't persecution.
The real problem is when they have the good sales at Kohl's on Saturday.
Right,
that's persecution, man.
Okay. But you see what in America, the level of what we get to. You travel to other countries, and you still have, what level of trust would we exhibit? Being here in America, if all of a sudden that switch was flipped, and it wasn't as easy.
Now I want to add here what you're saying, Tom. The one thing I wanted to add is I'm going to guesstimate and take a leap here make a statement that I think probably most of the people in the sanctuary right now do something that many people would think is crazy, and it's called tithes and offerings.
Yes. Yep,
There's many
absolutely.
people who would say, you are out of your mind. Why would you give that much money without getting any sort of product from it?
Right.
You know, like you're not gonna, you're not getting a vacation out of it. You know, you're getting what?
Yeah.
And they look at it. So I think that's something to be celebrated, is the fact that we understand something here, and that's part of the picture here. Is yes, we've taken that step of faith, and we realize that we are a part of something, and it's part of something pretty big and amazing, So, but anyway, I want to just interject that.
No, that's because faith and trust go hand in hand, right? Especially when it comes to tithes and offerings. Like I used to hear all the time, back about 15 years ago, there was a lot of rumblings in the local area, and a lot of people would say, well, withhold your tithe, your tithe, that's the way to really tell them what you feel and how you think. Withhold your tithe, kind of thing. And I eventually got to the point where I said, you know what? I can't see doing that because if that's the only way that I can communicate is by withholding the money, then I need to look at myself more than I need to look at the institution that I'm giving it to. Is this institution perfect? No. And we can wax long and hard. Okay. However, we attend it, we trust God, and we have faith that He's going to do the right things with what we give. And if you lose that, right, then that's something that you need to communicate with God about. If you lose that faith and trust, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've opened up a can of worms there. We got to step away from it because it's a big one. It's a big one.
But that's what I do.
So, yeah, it's an interesting concept. So, treasures in heaven is Thursday's lesson. I'm trying to calibrate where we're at here. So we all know on page 11, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where there neither thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
So I came across an expression, where your focus goes, your energy flows.
Oh, okay, that's good.
And that's part of the picture, where our focus goes, our energy flows. And it's like, that's what I think Jesus is trying to say here. Mm-hmm. Wherever our focus goes, that's where everything's going. Our energy is going to that.
Well, what does he not talk about in this? I mean, I always look at what they don't say in the verses, right? Yeah. What they say in the verses is important, but what they also don't say in the verses is almost just as important. Okay, what treasures is he talking about here? Okay, he then answers his own question. Okay, where moth and rust can destroy. Okay, so you're talking about physical things, right? Is he talking about relationships? Is he talking about, love and kindness? Is he talking about character? Is he talking like, okay, no, I can't lay up those, I can't have a relationship with people because I'm this direction only.
You're right? Super holy.
Right. I'm super holy. So,
yeah, I get that feeling all the time.
So I can't, I can't work on my relationship with you. Like I haven't spoken to my brother in 15 years, kind of thing. But that's okay because, I'm good. This way I'm good. Really? Is that the kind of treasure that we should be concentrating on? Only? We need to, go ahead.
I think you can be very rich and be a very good Christian. I don't think that verse says anything about money. I think it's like Pastor Rome said, your focus. So if we focus on a relationship with Jesus and we're going to heaven and worried about that, and we happen to get rich because we are also a smart, successful businessman.
Right.
They're two different things, but I think we as people always get confused. We think, oh, he wants us to be poor? Like, no. That's not what he's saying.
No.
Well, he also talks about, right, and I bring this up with my school-age children. Okay, the great commandment, all the commandments are squished into two, right? And we talk about the first one, which is love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And people have a tendency to stop. Right? They'll stop right there. That verse doesn't end there. The second half of that verse also says what?
Love your neighbor as yourself.
And your neighbor as yourself. Okay. Well, that's different. Okay. That one's a little bit more difficult, people. Because my next door neighbor throws leaves in my yard. Okay. And that's
yours too? No, I'm just kidding.
and that's right out. Okay? Doesn't stop there. The riches that we're supposed to get. Okay, so think of this. We're in control of God's riches. What are God's riches? Love. We need to share love with the unlovable, even if it's our next door neighbor throwing leaves in our yard. We're in control of those riches. We're the ones who can give those out. And we can give them out without measure, because there's no dwindling pile of love, right?
It's not a limited resource.
It's not a limited resource.
Yeah.
God has unlimited resources for us to share. And we talk about the material things. I think it's more along the lines of love, tenderness, kindness, help, our time. Okay, because we say, oh, well, we have limited time here on this earth. We got to stop thinking like that, people. I have limitless time. Why? Why can I stand up here and say I have limitless time? Because why?
Mary?
Right, but what's going to happen next? In the next instant, what's going to happen, Mary?
Hold on, Mary.
That's right. I'm going to wake up, and if I've done these things, I now have limitless time.
Amen.
Yeah.
So my limitless time doesn't stop here. It starts here.
Even Ellen White said that eternity begins on earth.
That's right.
Yeah, she does say that. So
it begins here. So don't be stingy with your time. That's probably the most important thing that you can give to people.
Absolutely. And it's interesting is because these words of Jesus are spot on, because anybody, I figured it out years ago, anybody can own a Ferrari.
Right.
That may be, anybody can own one, thanks to loans.
Yeah.
You may have to sleep in the Ferrari. You may have to cook in the Ferrari. That may be have the mail delivered to your Ferrari, but you could, because of loans, just say, this is my residence. And I say, okay, so let's say somebody does that. Where does that leave you, after 30, 40, 50, 60, when you're ready to kick the bucket? You say, well, I owned a Ferrari.
Right.
I owned a Ferrari. And if that's your treasure,
right.
It's we all know it has to be a pretty sad life, but there are people who actually in history have said that was their goal. Right. And this is where Solomon, it's a depressing book, but I mean, Ecclesiastes, essentially he says, well, I tried the Ferrari.
Right. I owned everything.
I owned everything.
Right.
And he says it's meaningless.
It's pointless, right.
So it's like Jesus is saying here, sort of piggybacking on that, don't get into this rat race of laying up such treasures on earth. It's where moth and rust destroy, and we all know that Ferrari is going to need oil changes, tire rotations. Right. I did know a guy who he had a Maserati, and he's an Adventist, and he's actually a tailor, and he did some tailor work for some famous people. But at any rate, Ferrari. So he said every time he goes in for an oil change, it's $1,000. Yikes. Because of all they have to do with it. And granted, the oil change would last longer, but it was still, it's like, really? and anyway, point being is, it's, what's important? What are we spending our money on?
Well, I mean, but to my gentleman's point here, we don't turn this into a bash on the rich session, right?
Right.
Okay. As long as your focus is one direction, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being smart at business, investing wisely, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, God has blessed you with resources that he wants you to do what with now? Right? And he's trusting you. Okay, my father knew a gentleman. His name was John Hecht. okay, years and years and years ago, okay, and he was a successful contractor. Like, he became a millionaire several times over, and he went to my dad one time, and he said, Tom, he says, I don't care about the money, because it's not about the money. What it is about God, I asked the Lord to bless me so that I could bless others. And John he made a runway at a local, one of our local colleges. He just laid out the money to get a runway, and he had an airplane program and this and that and the other thing. He spent as many millions as he made. Okay. Now, did he live in a shack? No, he lived in a nice house. Well, he had some of the finery of life, exactly. Okay, but he didn't just keep it all.
Right. So, it occurred to me that anybody, this is not talking to the rich, it's talking to us, talking to me.
Right, that's right.
I mean, let's say, for instance, I have a toaster that's broken. And let's say back in the day when you had repairmen who would do this sort of thing, and so I got to take this toaster, or make it a microwave, whatever. But it's essentially what we would call a disposable.
Right. Nowadays, yes.
Nowadays item. And so I got this toaster. I says, I got to drive all the way across town. So I drive across town, and of course, I hit traffic. There, I'm losing my temper. Traffic jam for a toaster.
Right.
Then I get to the repair guy, and you want to charge me how much to repair this?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And now I'm like, this guy's ripping me off.
That's right.
This guy's ripping me off. Who does he think I am? Rockefeller?
Yeah, yeah.
And I say that because inadvertently, this ridiculous toaster can sabotage my peace. You know what I'm saying?
And we're being miserly with the resources that God has given us.
Yeah. So it could be, and it can ruin and I could maybe I use some bad language with this repair guy, and I say, man, how could you do that? How do you sleep at night? You know,
you veggie link. Oh wait.
But and that's the thing is, like, when I see that toaster as most important,
right,
it's already done.
Yeah, you've already right.
I've already got my treasures on earth.
Good, right.
That's the hard problem. Yes.
Yeah, there's someone watching online, and they just had this question. What about life insurance?
What about life insurance?
Oh, life insurance. Well, I mean, now let's go over to this young man's conversation, right? I have a responsibility to my ancestors, but do I not also have a responsibility to those that I've created? All right. I know a lot of people, and this is very cultural. I know a lot of people who work at my wife's nursing home that they, and I'm going to use the word, they religiously send money, the vast majority of their paycheck home to either a different part of this country or to a different country completely all by itself. Yeah. Right. We have responsibilities both ways, in my opinion.
So let me just answer that question directly. Yes. And I'll tell you why. Like what's going on, what Tom said. I've been privileged being a pastor for 30 years, and too many times I've actually seen the situation where the children of the deceased have to huddle together and say, how are we going to pay for this funeral? And they're pulling out credit cards, and they're taking loans, whatever. And I'm like, wait a second here. For, it used to be called burial policy.
Right,
For X number of dollars per month, you get $10,000, enough to cover for a funeral. But my point is it is something to think about, and for the next generation to.
Well, it comes back to this long-term planning concept that we talked about early on, right? It's not, okay, I know it's a change in paradigm. I get it. I understand it. I've grown up in the paradigm. It's not a bad idea for us to do long-term planning in this world. It's not.
Just don't do it when it's too late.
Well, right. So
I know too many people who do it too late.
Right. The achieving salvation and your relationship with Christ, that's a now thing. That's a now thing that needs to be maintained every second of your life. Okay? That's not what I'm talking about. Planning for the future, providing for those that come before, those that you're going to leave. All of these things have their place and are of importance.
Very, very true. So, listen, we're kind of going all over the place. Anybody have any questions or comments? Because it's interesting what it says here on Friday's lesson. This is really a powerful quote from Thoughts from Out of Blessing. That's probably it's either that or Christ's Object Lesson, my favorite book, right, from Sister White. If you have renounced self and given yourself to Christ, you are a member of the family of God. And
Amen.
Everything in the Father's house is for you. I mean, just marinate in that sentence for a moment.
That's right.
That's amazing. And the only qualifier is if we have renounced self and given ourselves to Christ. What does that mean?
Yeah.
How do you spell that out? It's a deep question.
I mean, some gave all, right? Some of us, you don't want to hoard God's blessings.
Right.
You don't. Because there's a limitless supply. There's always more where that came from. Okay? Don't be miserly with God's blessings. To you and to the others that you can share them with.
Yep.
Right?
How many remember Christmas Carol? Ebenezer Scrooge, isn't that the story?
Yeah, Christmas Carol. Yep.
Remember that story? And I think that's people don't. I think it's a very spiritual.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, with the ghost, that's not. But
the point of it all.
Here's a man who is just totally miserly.
Yeah. He bought into the wealth of this world is what's important.
Yes. And he could care less about Tiny Tim, isn't it Tiny Tim?
Yep.
Remember the story. And finally he has these dreams,
Yep.
which, but I mean, that's interesting, it's a dream.
Yeah.
And let's replace it with the word vision.
Yep.
And he sees his life.
Right.
And it's like, this is an epiphany for him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, wow.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it for a long time, so I'm forgetting what the dream encompassed, but it changes him, and then he's a new man.
Yeah.
And he comes out, he wants to help Tiny Tim and the family. You remember the story.
It's all about relationships afterwards.
Yeah.
It's all about relationships. And it doesn't say that the story doesn't say that he made himself poor.
Right.
It just means that he gave as much as he had more to give than most.
Yep.
Because he had bottled it down for so long, kind of thing. And he made the lives of those around him so much better after he had these visions. It's very spiritual in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. So it's interesting because I heard a story. I don't remember who it was. It might have been John Wesley. I don't know. But it was some, reformer. And somebody was acting, I think somebody was sharing the story in a sermon that when this reformer died, all he had was, I think it was $2.
Okay.
Because he had given away, I think it was John Wesley or Charles, but they were just militant on giving away.
Yep.
Militant, just give it away. Don't hold it. Get rid of it like hot potato. And so this preacher is saying the story that when he died, there was only $1 or $2 left. And out of the congregation, somebody said, perfect. And in a way, that's true. In a way, it is perfect. I mean, we're not getting into the life insurance issue.
Right.
But really, so there's $1 million sitting there when you're put in a casket and 6 feet underground. Right. What does it matter?
The bumper sticker on cars that I used to see, that says, "He who dies with the most toys wins," is an absolute lie.
I've seen that sticker too, and it's like, but we've heard the expression, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right. I think, are we done? Stop.
So we got to pray first. All right, so camera's going to go off, and we got to pray. We got to pray ourselves out. Okay, Pastor?
Sure. Father in heaven, Lord, it's easy to see our areas where we are lacking and to begin to think we're unblessed. but it's about where we put our focus. And we, on this Sabbath and this quarter, we're able to look at our lives and see indeed we are blessed. I want to pray that as we really live in that reality, that we will reflect the profound implications of our status as a son and as a daughter of the God Almighty.
Amen.
I pray that this will be a walk not of do's and don'ts and legalism, but a walk of faith and trust. And I pray that you will be with us as we go forth from here and as we enjoy our worship service, as we enjoy each other's company and thoughts and ideas and fellowship. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all. Happy Sabbath.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, sir.